From our sheds to yours, this is the place for all of us four-wheel drivers to stay connected 24/7. It's going to be a huge show, so let's dive right in.
Well, g'day guys, and welcome to another instalment of exactly this, Beers in the Shed. And I've got my partner in crime, Graham. He's on the line. Graham, you there, mate?
I am, mate. I'm just about to... Have you cracked a beer yet, mate? Oh, you have? Cheers to you,
I'm right
buddy.
in the middle of my first sip, first beer of the day. I'll tell you what, that is one of the most glorious moments of the day, when you can sit back after a day's worth of work, jump into the shed and have a cold brewski. I reckon that's what it's all about, isn't it, mate? Over the last week, we have had so many comments on our social media platforms, and we introduced a set of hashtags last week. If you jump onto Instagram and have a quick look, there's a stack of really cool things. One thing is for certain, though, our audience knows how to fail, and there's some crackers that have come through this week, mate. I can't wait to get into that. But we've got a stack of things to go through this week, and also we've got a stack of prizes to give away, which is always exciting.
Prizes are one of those things that I think people, are they really giving away prizes? Are we really doing it? Well, what I want to show you right now, mate, these three guys here were the entrants in our very first fails competition, and well, we said we're going to give them each a recovery bag. As you can see right there, we have stayed good to our word. But one thing I'd like to bring up here, mate, I'd like to show you Brad and Jack. They're back on the tracks. They're loving life. Look at Brad. He's standing at the front there with his recovery bag. He's just like, have a look at Hayden.
Yeah,
he's still in the bloody shed, mate. I reckon he failed a little bit harder than what it looked like on the old submission.
That's exactly right. He's going to be another probably year or two getting that thing back on the road. By the looks of it at that stage. Holy heck!
But anyway, mate, talking about people getting in touch with us and responses, etc., etc. How was last week's topic, mate? Did that not go break the internet style?
I suppose it's the topic on everybody's thoughts, you know, what do you buy? An old car or a new car? What's better, old versus new? So we put it to the test, didn't we, mate?
We not only put it to the test, but we asked you folks at home what you thought, and so we put a poll up on Instagram. The results actually shocked me a little bit, mate, and I think they shocked you too, because the new camp came in at 40%, leaving the old camp the winners, but 60%. That's actually pretty darn close, if you ask me, mate. Just
from looking at some of the comments, I would have assumed that old would have just absolutely been like 90% old and 10% new, but, you know, old cars still are the flavour of the month, there's no doubt about it. But new cars...
There's a shifting of the guard. There really is. I think people are starting to look and see the value. I'll point behind me here, the value in in purchasing a newer vehicle in this day and age. And the older ones, well, they're getting older. They're like me, though, mate. They're like me. They get older, but they're like a lovely bottle of red wine. They just keep maturing.
They just get better with age, mate. Until they turn into vinegar, that's when you got to worry.
Yeah. All those strange smells creep in, and you don't know what to do anymore. Anyway,
there's a fair few of those going on, that's for sure.
There is. That just reminds me, mate. For everyone out there that's watching this, please subscribe to our Instagram, because this is where you're going to see all this stuff. We put the competitions on there. We run a whole heap of stuff through our Instagram page. So please jump on board and subscribe to that, because missing out if you don't.
When we were talking about old versus new, one of the things that popped up during the course of that conversation was making the old trucks reliable. And I think that's the key.
Yes.
If you do make your old truck reliable, well, it's fantastic. It's a lot cheaper than a new one, and it's going to do the distance. And there's something cool about old trucks too. So this week I thought we'll tackle the big question, mate. And the major topic for this week is, how do you make your old car reliable? In particular, how do you get 500,000 Ks out of your engine?
You know, everyone's just going to come out and say, well, service it regularly. Well, but there's so much more to it. Have a look at, we've got Leighton here. This is he's a second owner of this rig. He's clocked over 500,000 Ks in that vehicle there. It's got the original engine, original gearbox and transfer, and it's still going, mate. That is a classic. That's an example.
We've also got Scrubs 4x4, over 1 million Ks on their Land Cruiser. You should get a letter from Mr. Toyota himself when you crack over 1 million. I don't know what the rules are there. I know you get one from the Queen when you tick over 100 yourself, but I don't know. There's something in that 1 million Ks.
I should get that letter next week then, mate.
You got a couple on the fridge, don't you, mate?
I do.
And lastly, we've got Dave, who's just ticked over 600,000 kilometres on his 1HD T80 series. So, look, there's one thing that's for sure, mate, and just going through those three comments, the three people with over 500,000 Ks all drive Toyota vehicles and Land Cruisers, should I say. So, look, I'm not going to say it's not conclusive, but science is science, mate. I've just gone through it now and done the math.
Have you considered the fact, though, that most Toyota drivers like to brag? They're like CrossFit people.
That's true.
CrossFit people can't just go to the gym. If you drive a Toyota, you've got to tell everyone. Nissan drivers, they don't care.
They're too busy driving into competitions like these.
Well, let's get stuck into this hot topic, mate. And I want you to kick it off, because you've got a few really good ideas from behind the scenes, not just servicing. You've got a whole heap of bits and pieces that you can share with people about how to get 500,000 Ks out of your engine?
$500,000. Look, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how to get $500,000 Ks out of your engine. If we look at some of my trucks, look at Sooty, I get asked all the time, how many Ks is on Sooty? Now, keeping in mind that the Speedo stopped for 18 months, it's got 450,000 clicks on that thing. Very reliable. We do a lot of maintenance on that car, of course. 79's only got 100,000 Ks on it. Just cracked 100 the other week, actually. So
Gee whiz. Is that a
little
lot?
bit of, yeah, it's just cracked 100, and I think that's pretty good. It is. It's a newborn, really. It really is very. Hopefully, I get another 400 out of that one. The Dirty 30, the original one, that got up to about 600, but again, the Speedo stopped for a while on that one, so I'd have no idea. But when we're talking about the main things to consider to get the big mileage out of your vehicle, it doesn't matter what you drive. One thing is a common factor: change your oil every 5,000 kilometres. Now, I know a lot of people talk about that, but how many people actually do that and religiously change their oil every 5,000 without fail? And that's a really good way to get longevity out of your engine, especially those diesels. They love an oil change.
It's like, I mean, in my personal case, it's like having a shower. Now, I have a shower once a week, whether I need it or not, mate. And I reckon I just do it once a week, whether I need it or not. And changing your oil every 5,000 K is one of those things. Just set aside and do it. Just make sure you do it.
A lot of diesel vehicles, all the soot goes into the diesel, so that the oil becomes quite sooty. Now, if you don't change that oil all the time, that soot turns into sludge, and that sludge is what kills your engine. It takes all the properties out of the oil, therefore the moving parts won't move as freely as they used to before and start to cause premature wear, essentially. And then those mechanical movements, all your pistons and stuff like that start to fail, and that's when you have big issues.
Nobody likes finishing anything prematurely, mate, so making sure that you do those things is absolutely fundamental. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you too, when you're doing this oil change, etc., obviously it goes without saying you're going to change your oil filters as well, but how regularly do you do your fuel filter? For
me, mate, probably every 10,000. Basically, I've grabbed Toyota's manual and said, that's cute, Mr. Toyota, but I use my car a little bit harder than most people, so I'm going to basically half the service intervals on nearly every single bit of maintenance I do, because I use the vehicle, probably a little harder than Mr. Toyota intended. And it's always served me fine.
Engine modifications, especially on the TD motors, you can go absolutely nuts. And you've seen those cars. You can get 300 kilowatts out of them and do burnouts up and down the street, but you ain't going to get 500,000 kilometres out of a TD that's got 300. You're just not going to do it. So both mine, Shorty and the GU, both of those are touring vehicles for me at this stage in their lives, and I have kept the modifications absolutely minimum. To give you an idea, neither vehicle has an aftermarket intercooler on it. They don't have that. Both of them have got super small turbos running very low PSI in them. And one thing I do want to make a big point of here is when you are bolting these accessories onto your vehicle, and sometimes you need to, you get these older motors, you do want to give them a little bit of a kick in life. Get it on a dyno and do it properly. Make those modifications work. Now, when it comes to newer vehicles, I point back here to the old Isuzu behind me. That thing, I could get that thing to absolutely scream. Those 4JJ1 motors absolutely scream. But we want to be in this thing for the long haul. And so as a result of which, we've done things to make it go further off-road. There's lockers in there, etc., but we've done absolutely nothing to the engine. And I think there's a lot to be said. Companies put a heap of R&D into making these engines, as you know. If you don't muck around with them too much, they'll go the distance, mate. When
you talk about driving style, Graham, one thing I got taught from an early age, and it's really put in perspective for me when I'm actually driving. An old bloke once told me, for every good gear change you do, you'll get another one. So basically, driving with a bit of mechanical sympathy is probably one of the best way to prolong mechanical parts. So I think about that. Let's do a nice gear change rather than just jamming into gear. If you have a bit of mechanical sympathy, you'll just get a longer life out of it. We were talking about new cars just for a split second there before, and yes, some new vehicles in particular, you can get big tunes on, and they will actually reliably make good power. And there's other new vehicles out there which you can put a tune on them, but the results really aren't that flash hot. And what I think that is because what a lot of common rail diesels are doing these days, they're trying to get smaller capacity diesel engines and really wind those things up to get a stack of power out of them. Now, the problem I see with this is they're highly strung motors. Look, I've never seen a Ford Ranger 2-litre motor, for instance, with 500,000 Ks on it. I don't think I ever will. And look, folks, if you do have a modern vehicle with high kilometres on it, let us know in the comments below, because I'm really keen to see some examples. In fact, if you've got some high Ks on your car, let us know in the comments below what your secret is and how you've done it, and of course what you drive, just so we can have a look, because I'm really keen on this topic. And I suppose another little tip as well, if you're driving your vehicle and you notice there's something not quite right with it, maybe it gets a little bit hot sometimes, or it's got something squeaky or something metallic sort of noise, you hear something, just turn the radio up and forget about it. I'm telling you now, that doesn't usually solve the problem. Either welded on or... No, that's right. No, you want to try and get that stuff fixed, because if your vehicle's getting a little bit hot each time, that's going to really severely hurt, your engine down the track, and you're not going to get that life out of it.
And that's what we're talking about when it comes to that maintenance and just looking after it, keeping it regular. And we've got JD. He regularly services every 5 to 10,000 kilometres, 100%, does everything. Yep. We've got Tom, 9280 series, 275,000 miles, keeps it clean, and she's rust-free. We didn't talk about rust because, that's not going to really have an impact on your motor. But a lot of these older vehicles, they're going to rust out before they get to 500,000 kilometres, unfortunately, depending on where you live. Another one here from Rick Turpin. Again, everyone's talking about it. Maintenance, service every 5K, trans oil, fuel, filters, bearings, etc. And don't drive it like it's stolen. Drive it like it's borrowed. There's a word of wisdom for you there, mate.
A lot of people are getting high kilometres out of their vehicles, and I suppose all the tips are very similar. Just maintain your vehicle and drive it nicely. That's... To sum that up, I suppose.
Like you said, if anyone is driving a modern common rail vehicle and they have got some very high kilometres on it, I reckon the people that are going to get in touch with us will be the escort vehicles that escort trucks up and down the country. I reckon there'll be some of those that might get in touch with us. Not those escort with that vehicles. No,
I was like,
mate,
yeah, some of those do have high Ks on them. Come and think about it. Mate.
They do, mate. They don't get a lot of they get a lot of servicing. But please, if you drive one of those vehicles, a modern vehicle, high kilometres, please get in touch with us. We'd love to find out about it and have your comments. We read absolutely every one of your comments, so please put them down below.
Yeah. And speaking of getting big kilometres out of your particular vehicle, we've actually got a deal coming up right next, which is really not only going to help you get big Ks out of your car, but you're going to save a stack of cash. So let's have a look at that one. This week we've got a cracking deal, and it's a product that I reckon nearly every single four-wheel driver should fit to their engine if they're serious about getting high kilometres out of it, because it protects your engine. I've fitted both these on the 79 because they're essential to getting longer life out of your engine. The ProVent catch can stops oil getting into your intake and clogging it up, and the pre-filter will help protect your engine from contaminated fuel and water in the fuel. What I love about the pre-filter is that it's got an alarm system so it detects water. You get notified and you can fix it before it causes thousands of dollars of damage. Best of all, they're an easy DIY fit in the shed. At the moment, you can jump onto their website and get a Direction Plus ProVent catch can or a pre-filter and get 15% off. Now, to take advantage of that, you simply go to the website and use the promo code ACTION at the checkout, and you're going to get the discount. If you haven't got one of these yet, you need to, and there's no better time to get one than right now. Head to directionplus.com.au and get one delivered to your door for a cracking price.
Coming up, we'll check out our favourite viewers' rigs of the week. We're going to talk camping with our four-legged friends, give away some prizes and answer your Dirty 30 and 12-volt questions. First up, though, let's check out your best fails of the week. I was going to introduce the next segment, but what I would like to do, instead of introducing it, I'd just like to play this very short video from DMX 520, because I think it sums it up nicely, mate. Mate, I don't know what he was thinking there, but I've actually seen you do things very similar to that in the past, so I'm not going to knock him too much,
Very similar, mate.
Very similar. Hey,
sometimes I've got two right feet.
How popular have these new hashtags been that we've made up? Forward Drive 24/7. Oh, well, this one in particular.
Absolutely, mate.
This one in particular fails. Folks, if you want to crack a beer and you're not in the shed, just type into Instagram, hashtag 4WD 24/7 fails, and I reckon you've got about 2 hours worth of good quality content in there to watch, because these blokes, I tell you what, some of them like to fail. Now, we've got best fail this week like we always do, and we figured the amount of people that are getting bogged, running into water they shouldn't be into, crossing creeks that are way too deep, they're going to need a set of seat covers, mate. So we've got a set of Razorback seat covers for the best fail of the week, and if you don't mind, do you reckon we just get stuck straight into them and have a look at some of these?
Well, I think so, absolutely.
You've done the climbing track, mate. How the heck does Chipper Smith do that before even getting on the track?
I don't know. There's no doubt a long story behind that one, mate, but he certainly didn't land up on his roof right there, because that's a flat dirt road, so I don't know.
I reckon there could have been, I reckon there's skids involved, mate, but I'm not going to go any further than that. Now, this fella here, Forester 4x4 Action, he did the $1,000 track in a Forester. I think we should just take a second to reflect. Just think about what he's done.
At first, I thought the fail was the fact he was driving a Forester. Just simple as that. And then I realised, he's probably done a steering arm as well, I think, by the looks of that, or a tie rod or something like that.
To all proud Forester owners out there,
one
get in touch with me. I'll give you Shauno's phone number, and you can give him a little call.
Probably shouldn't be on tracks like that, that's for sure.
Feisty, mate, feisty. Have a look at Grubby Jeep Kid. Coffin Bay National Park, straight stretch of road. I reckon that could be something to do with maintenance, mate.
Look, I was going to say that's a standard Jeep. What's wrong with that?
Oh, you
That's looking
okay?
pretty
All
normal
Jeep
to me.
owners, get in touch with me, and I'll give you Sean's number as well. Jeepers creepers, mate, you're on a roll. Scotty Guy.
No,
here from,
that's unlucky.
It's very unlucky. Scotty Guy here from Greta, New South Wales. Scott, mate, if you have a look next time you're in your vehicle, Scott, if you just look directly above you and to your left, ever so slightly, you'll see a reverse mirror, mate. I'd suggest you have a good look at that bad boy next time you're reversing, because there's a big hole behind you and you've gone straight into it. Have a look at this one. This made me laugh, mate. Have a look at this video by Kasuni in Talangi. We've both been there. Mate, one thing I love about that video is, well, it's unfortunate, poor fella's fallen in the water, but you hear his wife laughing. I reckon that's the best part. She's absolutely screaming with laughter now. We, this week, I think, coming up, is we're hitting the Killy Loop. Now, the water, when we did it, was nothing like this, mate. Have a look at Jared. I don't think I've ever seen so much water come out of a vehicle.
What do you reckon goes through your head when you've got water up to your seats? Like, you've been there a couple of times, Graham. So have I, unfortunately. It's not a nice feeling. I always find, like, it doesn't matter getting a little bit in the footwell, but once it reaches your underwear,
it just ruins your day, like a lot of things in life, mate. Once it reaches your underwear, you know you're in deep. And Jared certainly knows that feeling. Speaking of which, Boss VDJ 78, there's some technique when it comes to hitting water crossings, and this one's not in the technique book, mate. Have a look at this. He's gone in there full throttle, and it hasn't worked out too well for him. It really hasn't.
Gone in hard and got stuck hard.
Yeah, he really has.
That's it was such a nice vehicle.
And it looks like that kind of water that'll make you be a bit ill too, mate. It doesn't look like it's real pleasant.
You're never going to get some of those stains out there, that's for sure.
You're not. Honourable mention has got to go to this fella here. He is obviously from the UK or somewhere overseas. He has gone super hard, got bogged so gnarly, he's had to get a tank to pull him out, mate. Now, you've actually been very similar to that once. You had to get a tractor to come and pull you out.
I have never needed the military to come and get me. No. That's one thing I'm proud about. Yes. I have never needed the military.
Yeah, when you put your hands in the air,
is all time.
The military comes and gets you. You know you've done it. I had to give the winner this week, though, to Raising Territorians. Now, these guys obviously live up in the NT. They've gone out to Gunpoint. They have a bit of a fish. They never quite made it. They got bogged at 9 in the morning. They spent the entire day trying to dig themselves out of there. And the reason I'm giving it to them, the reason they're going to win it, is because the way they finally got rescued is to call the girls and get the girls to come and get them after knockoff. So, boys, if it didn't suck enough that you got bogged, you had to get the missus to come and get you out of it. So you get a set of Razorback seat covers.
Yeah, when you have to call the military is pretty bad, but calling the missus, I reckon, is one step above that. There's no doubt about it.
No, you avoid calling the missus at all costs. You don't do it. If you're really that bogged, you deserve a prize. Now, folks, don't forget, please keep using the hashtag 4WD247. I should get that right. 4WD247. It's on my shirt right here. And then put fails in it. It makes it so much easier for us to find your fails. And then, of course, you could be, you could be famous. We could be showing the world just how poorly you drive right here. Having beers in the shed.
More importantly, you'll win a prize if you're good enough.
If you're bad
good enough at failing, you'll win a prize.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it?
Don't want to fail.
You've got to be really good at failing.
Well, now is one of my favourite parts of the show. This is Tip of the Week, and we've had some cracking tips come through over the last few weeks. And this one here, I've got Mia up here because it's all about camping with your dogs. Now, for the best tip of the week, not your little kiss in the front. She just likes being involved, really. Just you can't get close enough. She's like Velcro, mate. She sticks right on you. But a Snatch Weekender bag. So we've just put our Weekender bags for pre-sale just right now. Those things are going off. We sold them out last time in 2 weeks. So if you're after one, jump on to snatchclean.com.au. But hopefully your tip is good enough to be our tip of the week and you'll win one. One thing that came up when we put this question on our social media platforms is a lot of people obviously are worried about losing their dog when they go out in the bush. Now, we had one really cool, there's actually a fair few tips came up about this, about trying to find your dog, especially at night. So we've got one from Miss Danny 4x4. She reckons you can get a really cheap LED light collar off eBay. And at night time, of course, that's going to glow nice and bright so you can see your dog. And we've also had a stack of comments come through, like this one here from Jump84, about getting a glow stick and attaching it to your dog's collar. Nice, cheap and easy way to make sure you can always find your best friend at night. I reckon that's a cool one.
Especially if you go to a rave, mate, you'd be laughing.
Exactly right. Then you probably will lose your dog, mate. That's for sure. If it's anything like Mia, she's at a rave most days, to be honest. She's so hyperactive.
We got another tip here from, I think it's, is it Marie? Yes, Marie that sent this one in. I've actually had this happen myself with Digi. We got up into the rooftop tent one day, and it was absolutely no problem getting up there. I just carried him up the ladder. We spent the night up there. You don't need to think about that too much. Then come the next morning, do you think I could get him out of the rooftop tent? He just didn't want to get out. He just went stiff as a board.
He's like, nah,
and
thanks.
there was no way I could get him back down the ladder. It took me ages. Yeah, that's not even a tip. That's just a problem. If you're going to put your dog in the rooftop tent, make sure you can get him back out again.
We're trading animals. I know they're playing with sticks. One of my hot tips is, and I learnt this the hard way, unfortunately. The first time I ever took one of my dogs off-road and camping, I took him on the beach and we did some driving, and it was quite a bumpy trip to sort of get in there. When I jumped on the beach, I opened up a pack of pillies and started fishing off the beach, turned around to get another bait, and all my pillies are missing. The dog's been in there and eaten every single pilly. And the dog's only about this big, mind you. It was a puppy. So where's his guts all bloated and stuff like that? You should have seen the messes that were coming inside that car, everywhere through the tent. You name it, mate. And it really put a dampener on, and I guess the tip out of here is be careful what you feed your pet off-road. Maybe just go for dry biscuits. Nothing extraordinary, nothing exotic.
A little bit of water. Yeah, don't give them milk and yogurt before you go out in the four-wheel drive. Mate, I've got to bring it back to quite a serious one, and I know this is one that is a bit nasty. A good mate of mine, he lost his dog last year to 1080 baits, and the story he tells of that night and the way it went down, I'm not going to go into it, it was horrific, nothing short of absolutely bloody horrific, and I don't want anyone to ever have to go through that. I am so careful with my personal dog. All around me here in the national parks, they bait 1080. I reckon it's a bloody travesty and it shouldn't be done. But folks, check where you're going and make sure the place hasn't been baited, that you're allowed to have your dog there, and if it has, if there's any chance it's been baited, or in fact, even if the adjoining property, because birds actually pick up the baits and move them. A lot of people don't know that. Crows, for example, magpies will pick them up and drop them into areas, I know you're a bit upset about it, into areas that they shouldn't be. So just if there's any chance of 1080, take a muzzle. If you think you can put it on your dog, this guy, he hates muzzles. Absolutely hates them. And if you're not going to muzzle your dog, keep them on a lead and keep an eye on them, because if they wolf down one of those 1080 baits, trust me, you do not want that to happen. It's
a serious thing, mate. I always carry a little muzzle just in the gut. That dog hates it, but if it's going to save a life, then I'm all ears for it. Another little tip as well, mate. This is a more practical tip than my last one. I've always, because I sometimes take my dogs out in the bush. This is little Max, actually. He's the one that ate all the pillies and made a huge mess inside my vehicle. He loves it. He loves it. But if you're trying to figure out a solution on how to keep water to your dog when you're in the vehicle, now, if you get a bowl and fill it full of water, the first corner, the first bump you go off-road, of course that water's going to slosh out, make a big mess. Your dog's going to go thirsty after that. If you get yourself a plastic, like Tupperware container, the ones with the clear lids or something like that, put the lid on and then seal it, and then cut with an angle grinder a little square just big enough so they can get their head in there. That way, when the water does slosh, it's not going to go up and over that edge. It's going to slosh around, but it won't come out. And I reckon that's a cool little tip. Well, mate,
we got a winner for this week, mate?
The winner this week is Brad Wilcox. Now, his first tip is make sure you take some bedding for your dog.
Yep.
But the tip that I really like is if your dog needs to be on a lead, why don't you extend your winch rope, keep it taut on a tree, so you've probably got about 20 metres worth of winch rope, put their lead onto that winch rope so they can run up and down. That gives them a stack of freedom when they're out in the bush. I think that's a cool little tip. And
it's a great tip, mate. Keeps them safe too.
Absolutely. And there's one thing I love, mate, nearly as much as four-wheel driving and camping itself, is taking your dog out in the bush. So if you can come up with some cool tips that way, and if you've got any more tips, folks, don't forget to make sure you go down to the comments below and add your tip about taking your dog out bush, even if you've got a campsite which is dog friendly, because they're getting hard to find these days as well. So just put up your tips. Keen to see what you got.
Mine's just ejected, it's gone, it's had enough, mate, so I think we should move on.
This one's gone to sleep, he's had enough. He's found that very interesting, didn't you, Maxo?
Oh, no, mine's in the rubbish bin. Get out of there. What are you doing?
So congratulations, Brad. You've won yourself a Snatch Weekender bag. Now, those things are hot property. They're flying out the door, so we'll make sure we reserve one with your name on it, and we'll be sending that out to you in about a week or so.
Well, mate, I don't know about you. I'm covered in dog hair and I smell like I ate something I shouldn't have, but little bloke, he's run out down there. He probably chases a chicken. He'll be all right. He loves it down there. Now, one of my favourite, I know I say this, but I love all the segments in this, but honestly, Rig of the Week is my favourite segment because you get to see what people from not just Australia, but all over the world are driving off-road. And for me, that's kind of cool that we can bring people from all over the world together. So, folks, remember, if you want to be featured on this, it doesn't matter, Iceland. If you live in Iceland and you've got one of those trucks with the big wheels and the guns on the side for shooting polar bears, I don't know if that's what you do with the guns. You probably shouldn't. I don't know how that works. But if you live in Iceland, please use the hashtag 4WD247rigs so that we can find your rig and put it on the show, folks. The winner this week is going to get a Milwaukee Impact driver. Let's get straight into them, Shauno. Speaking of someone from overseas, have a look at this. Martin Duncan, 1991 Daihatsu 4-track. What an absolute little beast.
Hi guys, my name is Marty, and this is my 1991 Daihatsu Rocky.
Now, looking at the finished build, it's hard to believe that Martin actually found this vehicle as a wreck in an Irish hedge and purchased it for just 60 quid. Inspired by watching the Four Wheel Drive Action channel, Martin completely stripped the vehicle down and painstakingly built up this custom beast in his shed. He's designed a roll bar, front and rear bar, rock sliders, diff and underbody guards, and fitted 33s with new shocks. He's got a rear leaf-over conversion and coil conversion up front. Along with an engine tune, there's an upgraded exhaust, CV jointed prop shaft, winch and light bar, and Martin reckons he's done all this for under £4,000.
Mate, I reckon a special mention has got to go to Justin and Melissa's 83 model Hilux. They've actually swapped out the 18R with a 2.8 litre diesel. It's got the 5-speed instead of the 4-speed, and if anything, mate, it's inspiration for Jocko, because this is how you should build an old Hilux. This is an absolute cracker, mate. They reckon there's not one thing that's not modified or replaced somewhere along the line of that build. Now, just to look at it, you think, yeah, it's pretty tidy, it's out in the mud and all the rest of it, but it's got like Subaru seats inside it. He's really gone to another level of detail. To keep a truck of that sort of vintage in that sort of nick, well, that's definitely deserves an honourable mention, mate.
It really does. And there's one thing that I'm always shocked. Toyota drivers buy a Toyota, change absolutely everything. I've never really got it, but anywho, whatever. So long as you're having fun. And it looks like Justin and Melissa really are. Have a look at this one, mate. This is this week's winner. It's a 1979 40 series. This would be close to your heart. Little soft top bad boy. It's four-wheel drive's name is Turtle. He has done an absolute mozza to this beastie.
G'day, my name's Wade. This is my 1979 model Land Cruiser, aka Turtle.
Turtle began life as a soft top, but in the 6 years that he's owned it, Wade had converted this 60 series back to a hard top. Turtle's been rebuilt with a 12HT and 5-speed transfer from a 60 series Sahara, along with custom drive shafts to suit the longer box. Underneath, Wade has fitted custom leaf tops from Fulcrum for comfort and flex, along with extended shackles and 79 series rear shocks all round for travel. Now, it might be small, but Wade's managed to fit twin light bars and roof rack, awning and solar, along with a bull bar, rear bar, twin jerry holders, 33s, 60-litre fridge and a custom roof console. Wade reckons Turtle fits the missus and 2 dogs, plus camping gear, with a bit of Tetris, and they've taken the vehicle from the Glasshouse Mountains to the Vic High Country and even out to Alice Springs.
Mate, it's insane, and the fact that he's actually converted from a soft top to a hard top, it shows he's really thinking outside the bubble there and made it more practical. That thing's going to live on for another 40 years without a doubt.
I like the name too, Turtle. It does look like a little green turtle getting along there. So congratulations. I hope you never have to use that Milwaukee Impact driver on that vehicle, but it's always good to have in there just in case. Now, folks, please remember, hashtag 4WD247rigs all around the world. We'll come looking for you, and maybe you too will win a prize right here, Beers in the Shed.
Now we're getting to your questions, and a couple of weeks ago, the big questions that kept coming in through our social media streams was all about the Dirty 30, because we just uploaded, I think it was episode number 6, where we got it registered, and of course it's sitting here in the shed now. So I'm going to go through, they're basically all Dirty 30 questions. I'm going to go through a few of those now, mate. And see
mate,
if
I'll just, you go for it, buddy. I'll just sit back and, all yours. The floor is yours.
Jan Harder, are you planning on putting a rear winch in the back of the beast? And I actually am. That's the only reason I didn't go for like a trundle tray drawer in the tray, because I do have provisions there for a rear winch. And I had one on the original Dirty 30, super handy. I ended up using the rear winch more than the front, to be honest with you. So definitely. Did you go with ARB front and rear lockers? And was that your choice of lockers? Yes, it was ARB front and rear. I've had other different models in there and broken them, and I've never broken an ARB one, so I've got that in there. I've got the big twin pump ARB compressor as well, so I've got a big compressor which also feeds the lockers, so it just works really well in that rig. A lot of people said, why aren't you running a fan shroud? Now, that's a good pickup. I'm not running a fan shroud. Now, the reason is because Well, I was supposed to run a fan shroud. Now, it's a 60 series radiator in that vehicle. I went to bolt the 60 series fan shroud up to it, and it didn't fit, so I've got to make a custom one. I'm actually going to make a 2-piece one, which is really cool and handy when you're out in the bush, because you can undo the top part of the shroud and work on your vehicle really easy, get access really easily. So that is coming, and I did drive it home without the shroud and did not get hot. FTE motors, they're a good thing, but I definitely will have a shroud before I take it anywhere serious, and that's for sure. People have asked why, Jack Price has asked this one actually, why have you got a thermo fan for the water-to-air intercooler radiator? So as you know, I've got a water-to-air intercooler. There's a radiator that's underneath the tray on that one, and I've actually got a switch in the cab so I can turn that fan off. It's got thermo fans on it. The thermo fans are fantastic for driving around, especially when you're driving on the highway and things like that. When you go through a water crossing, you want to be able to turn those thermo fans off. So that's what I've done. I've got full manual override on that, so I can turn them on and off if I need to. A lot of people have asked about, am I worried about that radiator under the tray getting filled with mud and water? The answer is yes, it probably will get filled with mud, but I just know I've got to clean it, and it's obviously not going to work at its best when it's covered full of mud. So, and the plan is not to drive it through too much mud, to be honest with you. So,
I can't wait to take the first trip. We're going to do something horrible.
That's
Killy
all
loop in
you-
winter.
yeah.
Killy loop in winter. Oh, yes.
I reckon $1,000 track backwards, mate, in 2-wheel drive, whatever. It's going to do it.
Yeah.
It's going to do it.
You're saying that now. You're
It's
talking
gonna do
tough, and you won't be at the time.
Well, I can't wait to drive it. But look, I'm going to pick and choose the trips. To be serious, if you go to an effort to build a car like this, let's get at least 2 weeks out of the vehicle before we drown it and put it on its lid. I think it's going to enjoy the vehicle. And to be honest with you, I'm just keen to take it on a few touring trips to just bed it in a little bit, take it up.
You're not talking so tough now, are you? Yeah, I'll drive anywhere. Let's just go touring about.
Says the bloke with the
Fraser Island.
short wheelbase patrol who's scared to take it up any rock step because he might flip over backwards. Righto, mate. That's why you live in
That's
WA,
true.
because there's no hills over there. Far out. That's all
You
right,
got
mate.
me. You got me.
Yeah.
Let's move
No,
on.
look, I definitely will drive it, but just let's just try and maintain that cute little look it's got at the moment, I reckon. Keep it in one piece. And I think the next big project that I'm going to start tackling on the Dirty 30 is a 12-volt system. So I'm going to put a bunch of Red Arc gear through that. I'm going to put solar up on top of the dog box. I'm even thinking of maybe a hard mounted rooftop tent on the back of the vehicle here. But the 12-volt is what's going to take a lot of my efforts over the next coming weeks. And in fact, we actually speak with Joel from Red Arc next. He's our guest of the week, and he answers all your questions on 12-volt. Well, today our special guest is Joel. He's from Red Arc, and he's also one of the technical gurus down at Red Arc. Knows a stack about 12-volt, about charging solutions, solar, you name it, this fella knows about it. So, mate, if you don't mind, I'm going to go through my phone. I've got a couple of questions saved that we've got over social media.
Yeah,
and
sure.
If you mind answering a couple of these for us, I'll
easy.
jump into the first one. This one's from Bevo_2911. What is the ideal 12-volt setup for weekend trips and the occasional weekly trip?
Yeah, okay, that's a good one. So I guess you could start with looking at the vehicle and figuring out, how old is it and what type of voltmeter it's got. So if you've got, say, a pre-2000 model, you could probably go with a basic isolator. So that's a nice, real cost-effective way to get some power into a secondary battery. If you did want to go to solar, you could either go to a DC charger, which also has solar, to get the power into that battery.
Yeah, right. So if you've got something like a little bit newer, like a modern dual cab or something like that, you're fair dinkum. You're going to go away a few times a year, mainly on the beach or something like that. The odd big trip maybe as well. What sort of BCDC charger? What sort of size would you need?
So if you've got a single battery, I'd probably suggest a 25 amp unit.
Yep.
If you've got 2 or more or a lithium battery, go up to your larger variants.
Like a 40 or a 50 amp.
40 or 50, yeah.
And any of those BCDCs as well. If you did, I reckon they're going to be good for maybe a weekend away if you've got one single battery in the back, do you reckon? Or?
Yeah, well, it's more relative to the capacity of your batteries.
Yep.
So if you're considering driving somewhere and then not starting the car again, you probably reconsider your capacity rather than your charging source.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the real benefit of the DC charger is when we get to our location, we're going to have a full battery and then we can maintain it with solar so we don't have to start our car again.
That's exactly right. And if you've got the solar panel, then you're pretty much good. Camp for a week or more and not really worry about your fridge.
That's right.
Drain out of power or something like that. Hayden95, what's the best 12-volt solution for hot water and coffee? He wants to fit it up to his camper trailer.
Well, the higher power devices, you'd probably consider an inverter.
Yep.
So a 12-volt power inverter. heating elements do use a lot of power. So
Okay.
we'd be at the larger end of the inverters power-wise. So probably around about 2,000 watt inverter would
2,000
cover
watt.
most things. But always check the wattage on the appliance first and use the lower wattage ones if possible.
Yeah, okay. So that's a good tip, I suppose, to figure out what sort of size inverter is look at what sort of appliances you want to run, work out how many watts they're going to use, and then get the system that sort of best suits that.
That's right, that's right.
Okay, that can be quite deceiving. But if you've got something like a 2,000 watt inverter, that's a pretty serious setup. That'll let you run a coffee machine, induction cooker, all those sort of things that draw a heck of a lot.
It would power most things, but it always pays to just check the wattage that we're plugging in first to make sure it will be able to run what we're trying to run.
And then if you do want a big setup like that, what sort of battery setup would you want in the back?
Yeah, well, being a high-powered device, you'd want a serious battery capacity as well. So I would always suggest on the larger inverters to run as big as you can fit, really.
Yeah.
Because voltage drop to the inverters will, if it does get the voltage drop, it'll struggle to power whatever we're trying to power.
Yeah, okay. So that's where lithiums or, maybe even a couple of lithiums in the back might be the go.
Yeah, most certainly.
This one here is a nice, simple one. Very important though. Crimping versus soldering, which will survive the vibrations of four-wheel drive better?
My experience with crimping and soldering, I prefer both, especially for high current connections.
Yep.
So if we're doing an inverter connection like we were just talking about before, I would suggest crimping and soldering, mainly because the crimping is the mechanical connection to the cable.
Yep.
Soldering actually stops any contaminants getting in there, so you don't end up corroding or getting any corrosion in your in the connections and having that break down when you're out there amongst it.
Yeah, okay, that's a good tip as well, because you especially have to get it right if you're using high-powered devices like a 2,000 watt inverter or something like that.
Correct.
But if you're just doing some why not a set of spotlights or something like that?
Yeah.
You still reckon?
If it's in an area that's going to get wet or be susceptible to corrosion, then it would be benefit to just solder the end just to stop anything getting in there, any moisture or.
Good tip. Right, Joel, hopefully time for one more, mate. This is a great question as well. I'm just going to pull this one up. It's from R Lacey79. When setting up a 12 volt system, what should be fused and what should be on a circuit breaker?
Yeah, good question. So most DC chargers, or all DC chargers I should say, should be fused appropriately, and I would suggest MIDI fuses.
MIDI fuses, opposed to your basic blade fuse?
Opposed to your blade fuses, yeah. So what ends up happening with the blade fuse, yes, it is a cheap and effective way to protect the circuit, but over time we get a bit of moisture built up in that from the heat that's produced in that cable.
Yep.
And with that we get a bit of condensation, and then we get a bit of corrosion in there, which is going to be a high resistance joint. So what you'll end up having is a fuse holder that will actually melt, but not blow the fuse because we're not going over current.
Yep.
So I've seen hundreds of these setups with
just melted
fuse holders. Yeah.
Okay, so go for a MIDI fuse in that situation.
The bolt down MIDI fuse, is a much better option for that. Everything else, like your lights and other products, you can get away with a blade fuse because they're lower current, and B, they're intermittent circuits, so they're not on all the time.
Sure.
Something like a brake controller, you could fit something like an auto reset circuit breaker to that, with the idea that if you do get a short somewhere between the vehicle's battery and the trailer coil, it will come back on at some point.
Yeah, right.
So
if you're setting something up in the back of your vehicle, would you put in some of those resettable circuit breakers?
you could put manual reset circuit breakers in to isolate either the input or the output. However, it's pretty rare to actually have to turn the system off.
Yeah.
So you might as well just use the MIDI fuse, and then it can be hidden. It's not going to be in the way.
Sure.
The other part of the manual reset that could happen as well is it's got a button on it. So something could be loose in the back and could hit this.
That button, turn your whole system off.
Turn your system off.
The fridge goes, flat.
Fridge turns off.
And then you
beer
lose all your
gets hot.
food. Even worse, your beer gets hot. Holy heck. No, that's a good tip then. MIDI fuses. I think a lot of people don't use MIDI fuses, and they probably should because it's such a strong connection, especially on those high current and drawing sort of 12 volt accessories.
Yeah, that's right.
Like a charger or something like that. Well, Joel, I want to say thanks, mate, for coming down to my shed and answering those questions, mate. We get stacks of 12 volt questions come via our social media streams, and I think now more than ever, people are looking to do 12 volt projects on their own rig, and myself included, mate. I've been taking notes, and the Dirty 30 is the next one to get a full 12 volt system. So
Awesome, mate. Sounds good.
I can't wait, mate, and thanks again, eh?
Awesome, no probs.
Mate, always good to catch up with Joel. He has got some fantastic tips there for everything 12 volt. 12 volts one of those dark arts, mate. Everyone thinks they can do a bit of lick, spit and twist and get things right, but to do it properly, you do need to know what you're doing and use quality components like the red arc stuff. So always good to have someone like Joel on, expert in the trade, mate. And I think with the rain just starting on my shed roof, mate, it is just about time for us to wrap up.
I reckon so, mate. And I just want to make a quick reminder as well, keep sending in your fails, your tips, and of course your rigs. And the best way to do that is to use the hashtag #4WheelDrive247 rigs or #4WheelDrive247 fails or hashtag #4WheelDrive247 tips. So there's a couple of little hashtags there. They're filling up online as well. If you get a second, just type that into Instagram because it's worth having a look. There's so many cool things under those hashtags. I've wasted a few hours doing that, that's for sure.
And look, coming up this week, we've got even more for you because we did the Wattigans. And I tell you, if memory serves me correct, Sean, it was a little while ago now, it was an absolute cracker, mate.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Graham. That was a super tough trip, mate, the Wattigan. So look forward to this week on YouTube. You're going to see all the action and you'll get to see how I put a few new battle scars in old Sooty over there. It's a doozy of a trip, mate. And make sure you keep commenting as well because we love hearing your comments. And also, don't forget those hashtags because you could win a serious prize. We've got some really cool prizes to give away. And we've already given away a stack. You could be on next week's show, who knows?
I've been putting in a lot of practice down here in the shed so that I don't stuff this up. I've been having many beers in the shed, as you can see. Turning into a keg myself, mate. But the proof is in the pudding. I'm loving beers in the shed. And if the audience has anything to go by on our social media platforms, it's going absolutely bloody nuts. So please keep the comments coming, keep your pictures coming in. Show us your rigs, give us your tips because every chance we'll put them on here and share them with the world. For me, mate, as you can see, I'm just about out of beer. I'm going to go and grab another one out of the fridge. Well, probably another 2 or 3 out of the fridge. For now, though, mate, I'm going to say cheers and I'll catch you next week. Look after yourself, buddy.
Big cheers, mate. Stay safe, eh?
This week on YouTube, we're getting down and dirty in the Wattigans, pitting old 4-wheel drives against new 4-wheel drives in the ultimate hardcore test. There's going to be carnage on the tracks with damage to rigs old and new alike.
That was so close!
Don't miss this epic adventure.
Yes.
Only on YouTube.